Writing is hard, and I know this because I have been writing, studying how to write, and talking to writers for the past 10 years. And I have found over the past decade 10 items that have helped me improve my writing. So here you go. For the first item is a timer or is a stopwatch. This digital stopwatch have literally been a lifesaver for me. I have used it to keep my writing session in track, not to go over time, but to rather commit and hold myself accountable for the writing session in that specific time. So right now I write for about 45 minutes. So I would set the time for 45 minutes and begin writing. And during those 45 minutes, I will write or do nothing, following Neil Gaiman's rule. And usually the first 10 minutes, I'm very uncomfortable. I'm very fidgety. I want to check my phone. I want to reach for different things. I think about the million things that I have to do on that day. But after the 10-minute mark, I'm very much in the flow of just typing away my sentences and just focusing on developing the story itself. I also use it when I record my podcast so that I don't go over the 1 hour or 1 hour and a half recording session that I have agreed on with the guest from before. It's $18 and it does a lot for me. I could have gotten a mechanical one that is a cheaper kind, or one of those kitchen timers that's maybe half the price, but I love the design of this one. Sometimes I leave it on the desk, sometimes I just place it before I record right about here, and it gives a good aesthetic. The second item is a journal. This is a regular large size hardcover Moleskine notebook, and I've been using these for the past maybe 6 years now. I just write everything that I think about, from life and what I'm going through and the emotional up and downs that I experience, to the characters that I'm writing about, what they like, what they don't like. If I'm struggling with a particular scene, I'll write about the scene itself and instead of writing the scene. So anything I'm struggling with or I'm interested in makes it right here to this journal. Next is a bunch of books, and the very first one, which is a book that I've recommended to literally everyone that I know, is Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. This is a book about writing, but also about a writer's life. I learned English when I was in high school. I was about 13 when I moved to the US with my family, so I struggled with building the confidence to becoming a writer, and I even hid the novels that I was reading at the time because I thought my friends would make fun of me. So you can imagine that I struggled with learning English, but also how to be a writer, just writing characters, scenes, descriptions, background, plot, worrying about vocabulary and even sentences and how I vary them, and instead of having them be in one tone. And Anne Lamott made me realize whether you are a native English speaker or someone who is writing in their second language, writing is still as hard. So she helped me stop listening to that voice of doubt and just focus on my writing and how I can get better on the day-to-day. And this book is full of advice for not just writers, but also people who want to live life in a content way. The fourth item or items is the trilogy by Austin Kleon. The first book that I read for Austin Kleon was Steal Like an Artist, and it's a book that literally teaches you how to steal like an artist. So it basically argues that we are in this flawed race for originality, to searching for the next book or the next story idea that has not been written before. And he says that that's not actually true, that every story, every book, and every invention that you create is basically based on something that has existed before. So instead of struggling to write something original and seeking something that it's not there, just observe the things that you admire and you like and steal them and twist them and making them your own. I remember in my writing program there was this writer that would take a story that he really liked from online from my book and rewrite it with his own twist. And what Kleon says that this is the best form of learning, is that when you start by copying someone else before you develop your own voice and style. And the next item is the one that motivated me to start shooting these videos and posting on social media and sharing about my process, was show your work. There is two important lessons in this book. One, you have to practice in public, whether it's your writing or sharing about your art. And two, this is the way for you to get discovered. So do not bank on the statement where he said if you are good enough people will discover you, but put yourself out there and show people how good you are, for you to create channels or avenues for people to know what value you are providing. And I literally have these on my desk all the time, and I reach to them often where I go to a certain chapter that I remember I want to reread and I just read it. The next item is also a book, and I'm realizing right now that most of this list is books, and that's what writers do. We just read to write better. This is a book where I struggle to remember the title, and it's by George Saunders, A Swim in a Pond in the Rain. This is a little nerdy because it's a study guide for short stories, and George Saunders is known to be the best short story writer of our time. I only discovered George Saunders a few years ago during my MFA program, and it was my writing professor who recommended reading this book when it first came out. The way it's structured is that you read a short story, and it's all Russian writers because that's what he taught during his program in Syracuse. excuse, and then he gives you his commentary, what worked about the story, what didn't work, and it covers many things from building scenes to tone to voice to characters, basically all the things that make a story work. And Saunders has a very soothing, you can do it voice. He literally makes writing sound so easy, and he made me love editing more than any other writer that I have read in the past. For him, real writing doesn't start until you start editing, and editing is not only a daunting task that you have to do after you write the first draft, is rather where the art of the writer starts. There is a sense of manipulation that he uses when it comes to editing, that you are the one that's controlling the experience of the reader, and so you have all the faculties and you make decisions in a way that optimizes the emotional experience of the reader. The next item is an app called Things 3, and it's basically a to-do list, and I use it to organize my life, to have a list of the things that I have to do and I have to remember and all the things. But I also use it as a note app. Now I can use my note app on the iPhone, but then this is a quick way for me to jot down things when I wake up 4 o'clock in the morning with an idea, or when I'm on the train while reading a book. It's literally on my home screen. I click one button and the note pops up and I start writing right away. Now this helps me capture video ideas for my characters or struggles that I'm facing and how to solve them, conversation that I'm overhearing on the street or on my commute to work, or anything else that I think of value that I can later delete or keep. So for example, if I jot down a video idea, I will take it then and move it into Notion, which is another app that I use to record all my notes, but those are more detailed and where the scripts happen and everything else. It's basically a first stage filter for me to jot down everything that I think about. In the past, I used to carry pocket notebooks like this, and it got annoying. I used to forget them a lot at home or even misplace them, and they're just not practical like an app. Cost $10, but is the best $10 I've ever spent on the App Store. The next item is the dictionary. Now, why would I use a dictionary when I have an app that I can just look up all the words for? It's called Google. And it's because once I asked a published author, how can I increase my word bank? I realized that there was a lot of things that I didn't have names for, experiences that I wanted to express, but there was no words for it. And he advised me to put a dictionary next to me whenever I read, and consult it when there is a word that is interesting to me and I want to find out the meaning of. And what that does is that it forces me to look up that word, and while I'm looking at that word, I'm also seeing all the other words that are related to it or sound similar to it, which helps with exposing my brain to just more words. And obviously looking things on textbooks or books is easier to remember than on the phone. I honestly don't do this as often, but in the past I would do it twice or 3 times, maybe during the weekend, where I would read for half an hour or an hour with the dictionary next to me. I would look up maybe 3 or 4 words. I didn't used to just stop at every page and look up any words that I didn't know, just the ones that are interesting, that give power to that sentence, and I know that I would miss out if I didn't look it up. The next item is, oh no, I don't know how to pronounce this.
Thesaurus.
The next item is Thesaurus. This is another item that the published author recommended for me to get. And while the dictionary is for me to consult while reading, this is for me to consult while writing. And he made it very clear for me not to touch it while I'm writing the first draft, because the first draft is supposed to be written fast and without interruptions and without any distraction, because it's the stage where you are discovering the story and what you are writing about. But while uttering, if I'm reading a sentence that there is a word that doesn't make sense, or there is a better word that I can convey the message in, then I can consult the thesaurus. And the final item is index cards. And I know what you're gonna say, oh, you take notes on index cards? I thought you have an app. No, I use these as bookmarks, and sometimes I write notes on them, but they're mostly just to hold on to the page that I'm reading on. I hate bookmarks, especially fancy ones. They have too much design, they're distracting, and I have to move them from one book to the next. What if I'm reading 2 books at the same time, a non-fiction and a fiction? Now I need 2 of them, and I know I can get them from the bookstore, but even those, sometimes if I lose them, then I feel like I'm missing out and I need to go get another one once I visit that bookstore. But in index cards with $3, $4, I can get 50 of them. Sometimes I wrote notes on them, sometimes a quote or a sentence that I want to steal, but most of the time they're clear, and I have an index card basically in every book that I have read, and I don't transfer them, I just keep them in there. And how has that improved my writing? It helped me read, and if you read, you get better at writing. These are the 10 items that have helped me improve my writing. I want to know what items have helped you improve yours. In the meantime, thank you for watching this video, and keep writing.